came to this world to reach the stars. We came to this world to shape our future. We came to this world to reach the stars. To shape our future. We came to feel the music.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Armor of Truth Live, number 432. Let's jump in here. Just bear with me for a second here. So, what we're going to be talking about tonight, well, I get this camera. That's not going to work. Is we've got kids protesting for eyes out in the streets. You know what happens? See that? Helps when you take the lens cap off. So anyway, Summer, are you with us? All right. Off to a great start.
Are you here?
There you go. There she is, ladies and gentlemen. It's
Here we are.
It's the lovely Summer.
We've got Tartarian Vagabond from Australia in the chat. Shout out to Down Under.
Excellent. Okay, there we go. Now then, we're back where I need to be. So we're going to jump right in with videos because you have to see it. Not only that, we have, I mean, this story, it happened all across the United States. Hundreds, I don't know, maybe thousands. I'm not sure how many schools yet. I haven't seen a good report on that yet. I'm going to start this out. And then once we show you what's going on with the story, we want to show you why it happened. That this is not new. This has been going on for how long? How long? Summer? 30 years? It's been building for 30 years, probably.
Well, 30 years quite intensely, but obviously for hundreds.
Yeah. Yeah, well, certainly. Yeah,
but
certainly.
Overtly for at least since the last 30 years. Yeah. I mean, where it became like full pedal to the metal as far as indoctrinating the kids,
right?
Turning up the volume, incrementally making it more intense, the indoctrination in the schools uniformly across the nation over the last 30 years.
What we're talking about is social and emotional learning or social emotional learning. And this is a very specific tactic that it has a revolutionary socialism at its core. And of course, the The purpose of revolutionary socialism is communism. It's not atheistic. It is very much religious. It's an eschatological belief system that believes in a utopia. And that's why they believe, the people who have trained these kids to do this anyway, because we were talking about this earlier. It doesn't matter anymore if you disagree with the left. You're not convincing them that it's two rival worldviews butting heads in America. There are two separate nations, two completely different views of the Constitution in America today. And the problem is the division is so stark. The line between the two is so bold. You can't convince the protester in the street to reconsider his position because it's founded in a moral argument. And so that's what brings this up. Check this out.
Back here at home, hundreds of Chicago high school students staged a walkout to demand an end to violent immigration enforcement policies. Here at Amundsen High School, lines of students streamed out of the doors around noon today. They chanted and held signs calling for ICE to leave Chicago. They marched to River Park for a rally, joined by teens from other nearby high schools, as well as local politicians who pleaded for a return to humanity.
These issues are not just numbers. They are not just videos. They are not just some trend or some TikTok video to be seen. These are real suffering people with hopes and dreams just like ours.
Students from Mather Northside College Prep and Roosevelt High Schools also took part in today's walkout.
Okay.
The internet deciding
that from CBS News. Jump right ahead now. This is from TRT. This is Chicago. We'll hear it in the clip, but yeah, I think it's Chicago.
In cities including Minneapolis, thousands of demonstrators turned out calling for ICE to leave Minnesota after two community members were shot dead 2 weeks apart during federal operations in the state.
My little brother woke up today, and honest to God, he came up to me crying, saying that he was scared. And I said, of what? He said he had a nightmare that me and my dad got taken from ICE.
I
gotta stop it. His little brother woke up saying he was scared. Summer, why would his little brother wake up feeling scared? Is it because there's a legitimate threat to his life? Or is it because something has been embedded in his mind?
Well, yeah, because the establishment media and their operation that's been revealed in the last weeks, especially with the operation that's going on in Minneapolis, obviously the Signal Gate happened, and now we've got all of these kids coming out of the woodwork by the thousands across the country. So that also indicates a level of organized network, right? So that's what you need to see here is this organized network that wants to reframe what morality means. They want to tell you that it's okay to obstruct, it's okay to break laws and be lawless. Because why? Because they've been taught in a very Marxian communist framework, which is humanist. And so that's really what comes to my mind when I look at this right here. And we're going to get into that in one of the articles that we put out just today. Some interesting twists on how to bring some clarity to this situation, really, and how we really are living in an inverse reality. And it is truly a clash of two worldviews that are irreconcilable.
Yeah, there is no middle ground. There's no neutrality in this war. And I would say that is the mark of a true enemy. When the worldview is utterly opposed, there is no neutrality. In Christianity, there is no neutrality. You could say it like this: objectivity and humility are virtues that we all strive for, particularly Christians. It's our calling. to love our neighbors. But neutrality is a vice. You can't be neutral on a moral argument.
Right. Like a republic cannot endure when its children are trained to hate its laws.
Yeah.
And its
And that's the
guests,
point here.
you know, these illegals are used to dismantle its sovereignty.
That's what we're
So,
going to point out to here is in a
yeah.
minute we're going to find out that they are being trained to hate America. It's not a theory, that's what it is. Listen to this.
Families here say fear has spread beyond immigrant communities, with parents and children worried about what could happen next.
And it really hurts me to see people get demonized because of the color of their skin or the content of the character. And so for me, it's just important.
I can't help it. I have to stop it again. Who's being demonized because of the color of their skin? I mean, really, who is it in this particular conflict? Which group is actually being demonized because of the color of their skin? Well, hang on. We'll show you the proof in just a minute about who it is that's really being demonized here.
Important to support people that don't have a voice for themselves.
I'm very proud to be here to represent my family and where I come from and my culture. And it's very sad that we have to stand up to an authoritarian government.
For many
There
here,
you go. Again, a concept that's been planted in her mind. Without the media and without, well, particularly activists, the public education system, the teachers' unions, without them doing activism in the schools, without the media sowing discord and fear, these kids' parents wouldn't be so hopped up, and these kids wouldn't be in fear.
the demonstrations are also about identity, belonging, and the right to live without fear.
If you're not sticking up for people who cannot defend themselves, then who are you? What are you doing?
Protesters say the nationwide strike shows their message is resonating far beyond Minneapolis.
Well, I love Minnesota. I'm very proud of what we've done.
While the administration has said that they may scale back Operation Metro Surge here in Minneapolis, the people on the ground continue to be furious, and they continue to call for ICE to leave Minnesota after the federal immigration operation has left 2 of their community members dead.
Organizers say the demonstrations will continue in the coming days as pressure grows on authorities to change course.
So just to stop right there, that is one of the main points right now that you will not be able to find common ground on with someone from the left, because that is right now. See, the argument has gone beyond whether or not Alex Preddy was breaking the law, whether or not the shooting was just. It's gone beyond that now. It doesn't matter anymore. What do you think, Summer? I mean, we were listening to stuff. We were talking about this earlier, and I think that's probably true. I don't think it matters anymore. It does ultimately matter, but in this civil war, it really doesn't matter whether or not. That's not the prime argument anymore. The problem is there is no convincing the other side.
Well, there's not going to ever be.
That caused it. Go ahead.
Because we know that everything that they do is to be destructive and contrarian. So you could try to reason with them all day long, and they would just perceive that as either weakness, or they would just change the conversation, because that's what they do. It's all about being a destabilizing force and deconstructing your reality and deconstructing your very way of life. That's what they're doing. That's how they're indoctrinating the kids. And as we've shown you in recently, that's what they're doing. And we're going to show you tonight with these human development centers, American New Development Centers. They are indoctrinating people, the people that arrive here, these migrants, these illegals. they're putting them through pipelines and training. They're training them to be antagonistic toward people who want to preserve the integrity of their countries and toward people that want to uphold the integrity of their country's laws and order. And so we've got these two populations that have now come really in fully on the stage, revealed, particularly of the illegal immigrant that is being protected. And that's like an asset that they've brought in to destabilize the culture. We've seen this in Europe. It's very obvious what's happening. They're trying to flood Western civilization and erase Christianity. And so they're also using the kids too. And what is so startling about this is I think that it's like a psychological move, really what they've done today with these kids coming out en masse by the thousands across the country to protest ICE and to be hateful toward ICE and the rule of law, essentially. Because let us not forget, if they really believed in democracy as much as they say they do, they want us to believe that when they say democracy, they mean the same thing as what most people think of as democracy. Almost 80 million people voted to have these, illegals who came in illegally deported, right? They're supposed to go. So that was the consensus of the American population was, hey, we voted this administration in because we want these people out. We can't, it's going to bankrupt our country. We cannot support it. It's unsustainable. They will not assimilate. And so, so there's one of these contradictions right there. And so that's what I'll say about that for now, but we have some really interesting points to make coming up.
Yeah, what we're looking at here is James Lindsay is calling it critical immigration theory.
Like adults, we will, and a bunch of kids, so I think it's very fitting.
We just walked from Concord High down to the State House with about 200, maybe 300 students who organized a walkout on their own to protest immigration enforcement activity, mostly in Minneapolis. That's where they started tuning in, and they saw the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Pretty, and they just felt like they needed to act on that. One of the students at the protest asked to be identified by just his first initial, A. He was born in Nepal, but moved to the U.S. as an infant. He said he and his parents now carry their American passports for fear ICE agents will make them prove their citizenship.
And we have to sit in our houses, in our own houses, in fear, worried that some random people wearing masks are going to break down our door and just detain us.
Edison N., 18, was born in the United States, but is nervous he could be targeted by ICE because he is African American. He has a plan if he's questioned by border agents.
I'd show them that I am a citizen and try to de-escalate the situation.
And when I talked to the school district earlier, just to see if they had a sense of how many people might come out, they didn't organize this. It wasn't a school-sanctioned event, so they weren't closely involved, but they didn't expect to have 200, 300 students.
And that's one of the big points, is you'll hear over and over that the kids decided to do this themselves. Of course, it was nationwide, and it happened at exactly the same time on the same day.
Yeah.
So that argument falls.
Of students walked out of school in an effort to protest ICE. The demonstration was part of a nationwide day of no school, work, or shopping to protest aggressive immigration enforcement across the country. 10 News reporter Ellis Rold was at the protest today and spoke with those students. Ellis.
Yeah, Katie, students from high schools and universities across East Tennessee participated today. They started near World's Fair Park and ended near the City County building. We want to show you a wide shot of that protest today. We have it blurred because some of the signs have curse words on them.
Yeah.
And many protesters.
Yeah, how about that? It's the kids' march, and you have to blur it because there's profanities. I'll show you. There's some kids who got arrested too.
Say they want ICE to leave Knox County and don't want to see federal law enforcement in schools here in Knox County. We have been told that Knox County schools will treat ICE, though, like any other law enforcement and cooperate. But they say they need proper legal documents and will speak to their law director before they give ICE access to buildings or student records.
And Alice, we do know that ICE.
Yeah, that's enough of that. Let's get to the next one here. Here's another one.
Kyle police say 2 juveniles were arrested today during a school walkout demonstration. Now, we have video of one of those arrests. Kyle police say 1 young person is charged with assault on a public servant, resisting arrest, interfering with public duties, consumption, and possession of alcohol by a minor.
So there you go. How about that? You know, assaulting police officer, assault on a Leo. You got drugs and alcohol. So, you know, as soon as that happens, you lose your moral standing. And that's the problem. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care about making, they'll make moral arguments, but they don't care about being coherent. This is Asheville, North Carolina. This is in our neck of the woods. Short and sweet. Here's some more.
Go to L&N STEM Academy. And why did you choose to protest today? Because we had seen what had been happening in Hardin Valley, and it's not safe for our peers or for our teachers. And in general, we just need to get ICE out of the school systems and honestly out of cities, out of the country. And what would you guys hope the outcome of this would be from legislators?
I hope that the people inside the city council building, everyone that we pass, hears us. They see how much they care about us, and they do their job, which is representing the people. Because right now they're not representing us. So we hope.
Again, what a horrible thing to teach these kids. Because if you enforce the law, you're hurting me. Even if you enforce the law on another person, you're hurting me. It's amazing. In other words, the point we want to make to you tonight is they're being trained to hate the foundations of the country, the foundations of moral law.
Make change from wherever you are.
What would you say? What's your goal? The school system should make kids feel safe when they walk in there. It especially shouldn't be a place for that. And for the city and the Knox County school system to be working with ICE just isn't okay. Can you tell me about seeing this turnout, how that feels for y'all?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, this started as like a group chat with not nearly this many people. And to see this many people and more coming, it means so much, because especially like living in the South, it can feel isolating to be, have these differing viewpoints. So it's amazing to see this community come out and be loud and be powerful.
Be loud and be powerful. She didn't think of that phrase on her own.
Anti-ICE demonstrations continue to pop up nationwide, and now Governor Abbott is directing the Education Commissioner to investigate Austin ISD for allowing students to walk out in protest. We saw a similar walkout in Fort Worth involving students at Trimble Technical High School, and there was another protest in Dallas in Bishop Barnes. Thousands of people packed the streets from Minneapolis to LA, and we just learned today the Justice Department is launching a federal investigation into Alex Pretty's death.
We're looking at everything that would shed light on what happened that day and in the days and weeks leading up to.
Good. Excellent. That's what we need. We need some kind of investigation to shed some light on this.
Justice, no peace, no more ICE in our streets.
I think that it's really important when you're not affected.
Summer, Sewanee, Georgia.
Right.
Okay. These are your people.
Not Swanee, but
is that outside the perimeter? I guess it is.
That's OTP.
All right.
To buy something to still stand up for you, what you know is right. And we all came together to decide that we weren't going to sit here and let everything that's happening just happen and pass us by.
And when it's a small group of people or teenagers or a school, it causes a disruption sort of, and it brings a change, or it brings attention to this. And bringing attention is what can cause this change.
This is in the same place here in Georgia.
No justice, no peace, no more ICE in our streets. No justice.
I have seen so much stuff online and seeing how it's affecting my friends. And for years I have felt powerless, and seeing other schools in the county being able to do this, I wanted to do something. I wanted to do a change. I wanted to help start something. So me with a group of people, we started something, and we just wanted change, and we really, really hope that this can impact the people that are getting murdered and abused. And
So there's two big points. We just want change, and we want to help the people who are being murdered.
Yeah, it's always big, sweeping, vague platitudes.
Change, right? Obama.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Yeah,
change.
in other words, we want socialism. I mean, that's
When's the-
what the message is.
Exactly. Yes. And then and the point of socialism is that the change never stops. It's never enough. You can see that because from the mid 1990s, when social emotional learning was really started, you know, it wasn't called that. It wasn't really even recognized, but the doctrine was there. So for 30 years, it has advanced. It's not going to stop advancing. It's going to keep going until they get to the communist utopia. Now, this particular clip is a little frustrating to hear. These are extremely small kids, and they're being coerced. They're being told what to think, how to feel.
About what's happening and what they want to see happen in our government to change the harm that we see. How do you feel about what's happening?
I feel all of it, or taken away from their family.
Right. And so
freak the kids out.
Just repeating what they told him.
And
You guys watch the lady, the teacher on the left back here. I'll put the mouse on it. Just watch her reaction here.
Hey, Joseph Powell says, did you hear about the Asian guy who built an app where people take pictures of people with American flags, people's houses with American flags, so you get put into a database?
That's, yeah. I mean, you know, this is what happened after Hurricane Helene when
There were
FEMA,
Trump signs.
yeah, when FEMA came into our part of the world, our part of the country, and just flat out refused to go to the aid of people that they had researched and found out were conservatives, or what if they had a Trump sign or some, if they could tell some way, if they believed. It's kind of like in Minnesota when they see SUVs on the street, it's automatically ICE. It's really disturbing stuff.
Yeah, it's very dystopian and it's very genocidal. So
yeah, we'll show you that in a second.
from their family.
right. And so
Freak the kids out.
Just repeating what they told him.
And now stop hurting people.
Stop hurting people. I like that they dragged they all right, you pause it. They dragged the cafeteria lady in there who does not have a grasp on the English language, and she's a little off.
That's absolutely insane.
It is insane. All right. This one from Utah.
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm filled with hope seeing how much Bountiful cares about our fellow Americans. Let's hear it.
What was supposed to be their lunch period turned into a lesson in advocacy.
Because we are currently learning in school about these histories, about these democracies that have been eroded, I think we are specifically tuned to see those problems when they happen today, and we see that today.
John Alley organized the walkout with his fellow classmates, mirroring other schools nationwide.
What do we want? Ice out! When do we want it? Now!
Students say they didn't expect this crowd.
I printed out pamphlets with some resources for people who want to help further, and I didn't think this many people would be here, so I only printed 20 of them, and I ran out really fast.
I would love to help us be an inspiration to the other schools around here, Viewmont and Woods Cross, to see more people coming out. We've seen what the power of the people can do.
As the group demonstrated, there were no obvious counter-protesters or dissenting voices. Allie and Mathis say their generation isn't afraid to speak out and voice their opinions. Instead, they want to take what they've learned in the classroom and be a part of a different history.
I'm hoping that we'll start to see change. It feels good to be here and to know that I'm doing something and I'm not just sitting back and watching and waiting for someone else to do something.
That's the message. If you're doing nothing, you're the enemy. There's no neutrality here.
Bianca, we're aware of about 10 schools across our region that are participating in this walkout. So far, I've seen a couple high school students that have started arriving in the last 10 or 15 minutes, and we are expecting a lot more. And when they get to the Capitol, they're also going to be met with several supporters out here in what appears to be another type of protest that has started here at the Capitol as these students begin to arrive here. You can see several people out here with abolish ICE signs, protect our family signs, and of course the many honks as drivers are going by and seeing this. And actually, I want to give you a look this way. It looks like students are just starting to arrive here to the steps outside the Capitol. You can see dozens of students that have participated.
So it wasn't organized, but they were able to get transportation down to the Capitol. Atlanta, Summer, here you go. You're not off the hook. This was definitely inside the perimeter.
Oh boy.
Several Metro Atlanta school districts are now warning families about the consequences that students could face for participating in school walkouts.
That's right. 11 Lives with Galat Malaman. She spoke with some parents in Cobb County.
How about that? You have some rational ideas coming out of Metro Atlanta, Summer. Isn't that odd?
Yeah, they must have the script for, having some opposing conservative views, which is unusual for Atlanta because it's totally, as progressive as it can be.
Well, let's hear what they say here. I haven't seen all this clip.
Who disagree with how the district is handling this.
As students at high schools across Georgia and the country walk out protesting ICE's actions, Cobb County parent Dale Carnegie is taking issue with the letter sent home to families, warning about the consequences students could face if they walk out too. It's this line after the district lays out consequences.
So let's read it.
Cobb County is further out. It's not Metro Atlanta. I mean, it's not like the city part,
Yeah. It's that's where the Braves have their stadium now. It's just up 85.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Well, they're talking about the consequences for taking part in this. And this part says here, each has long-lasting impacts that could be taken into account by college admission offices and future employers. What's interesting about that is we'll show you in just a minute how it happens to be just the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
College admissions offices and future employers, depending now on which side of the fence they land, are looking for this in kids today.
Is, quote, each has long-lasting impacts that could be taken into account by college admissions offices and future employers that Carnegie is most upset with.
I didn't like the tone in the letter, how it basically said, if you do this, it's going to ruin your future. I mean, that was the part that I didn't like. I do understand that the school is responsible to maintain a safe environment, but I think the scary tactics were a little overdone.
Okay, so he was actually coming from the other side. He thought they shouldn't have warned.
Yeah, that's actually not surprising.
Yeah.
District respects students' rights to express their views in a non-disruptive way, and that leaving class violates the code of conduct. Carnegie says he would support his son Jordy if he wants to walk out during a protest planned at Wheeler High School Friday.
It's a real life thing that's going on and happening right now. Like, I have family members that's currently going through it.
For Lassiter High School parent Julie Booth, this part of the letter, quote, we are aware of efforts by external groups to recruit students for around.
But I thought everyone was saying in unison across
it was grassroots. It was just grassroots.
Right. It's actually AstroTurf.
Regarding ICE stands out to her.
I feel like using words like recruit makes it seem like some nefarious source is coming in and trying to gather up our children.
Because of course,
there's the gaslighting.
Yeah, of course it's not a nefarious force. This is the kids are doing this. This is their idea. They want to help. Well, there is one here that does make some sense.
And that's not what has happened at all.
In a statement to 11 Alive News, a Cobb School spokesperson says in part, our schools are narrowly focused on providing safe classrooms where children learn, no more and no less. We respect the rights of students to express their views in a non-disruptive manner. In Cobb County, Gulat Malamed, 11 Alive News.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like reverse psychology.
Well, and now here comes the other side of the argument. This is the lady in Auburn, Washington State, Olympic Middle School, who found out this was happening and went to take her kid out of school. And this is her video. So this is interesting.
This is my daughter's middle school being allowed to protest ICE agents disrupting traffic, having everyone honk. I'm pulling my child from school today. This is fucking unbelievable. I'm here to pull my child from the school right now. I'm here to pull from the school district.
So you want to withdraw it?
Yep. This is unbelievable. I can't believe my kid is in this environment right now. I'm blown away. Can she be brought down to the office right now, please?
Again, if we have everybody out there, we'll get her.
I'm blown away. As a mother?
Yeah. Well, so I can explain to you what we're.
This is disrupting traffic and my child's education.
Can you sign her out and then I just need to double check?
I need to see my kid.
Yeah, we have to.
Okay. When she's down here, I will sign.
Unless we see her ID.
Are you serious?
Because there's unfortunately some parental agreements where
every time I bring it in, she doesn't check it because she knows me. This is amazing. As I walked up, I was getting booed by every single student. By the way, I'm making that known. Because I didn't honk, I pulled up to make sure everyone was okay.
You want to come back and talk?
Absolutely not.
Did we already get your student?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
I mean, we called for him and everything though?
She's on her way.
Okay.
And then
Will you go make sure? Who's your student? Just
In 7th grade.
from stairs to here?
Absolutely.
Yep, Maddie.
And I want to be escorted to there because every single student booed me because I pulled up here, rolled down my window. Is everything okay? What's going on? To run into this? I didn't honk. I parked as soon as I walked up. So I'm telling you right now, this is going to be a huge problem, guys. I cannot believe that my child is in this environment right now. I'm ashamed and I'm embarrassed as a parent and as an adult. Wow, I thought my kid was safe here.
They're very safe here.
How about that?
Okay.
That's not all.
Let this really wake this nation up to what is happening in our school system. Let it reveal what's happening with the children. We've been talking about this social emotional learning now for a while. I mean, this is shining the light on the fact that all of the coordination, once again, in Minneapolis, we were able to see how they have it divided by county line or whatnot, like regions and zones, and they coordinate and they're policing people within the neighborhoods. I mean, it's absolutely shocking how they're doing that. Just people, blocking traffic and checking people for their papers, for their ID to make sure that they're not working for ICE. And then you've got these schools that are complicit. And don't forget that Renee Good, the story is that she got particularly radicalized through her daughters or her son. I can't remember if it's the daughter or the son, but through the school. So, so school systems being a direct pipeline into this radical Marxist, communist, terroristic group. There's no other way to put it. I mean, we cannot put it any other way. We have to call this exactly what it is. This is the subversion of America, coordinated from the highest levels. And not only that, but the way that the news has covered it, the mainstream media news, how they cover it favorably and manipulatively as well, trying to cover all the bases to try to nudge you into compliance or to shame you subtly, psychologically, or gaslight you. I mean, it doesn't go any higher. It is totally top down.
Yeah, crazy. All right, let's now this is another angry parent. He's pretty frustrated.
Said that his school just brought him to a protest. So he's currently at a protest. I'm fitting to go rage. Who the said you could bring my child to a protest? Any of our kids to a protest. They see what's happening today. Bringing kids out there now. Purposely at schools. Washington State. Send this out. Washington State. Sending their kids to protest. I'll see you soon. Did you consent to that?
I didn't want to.
You didn't want to do that?
No, I was when the cops came up. One of the guys was like the guy with the megaphone, like a kid, who was like, "Do not talk to the federal thing, Bob, whatever it is."
Best believe I will be at the next school board meeting. You'll see my next
Good.
video when that happens.
Exactly.
Good. This is what parents need to do. I mean,
Yeah.
really, like, I mean, if this doesn't, you know, if you're a parent and maybe you thought this was a rumor or you thought this wasn't really happening or there was something being exaggerated, then, you know, you can't say that you don't know, because now it's in everybody's face, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, here we go to Phoenix, a very, very blue state, but we have some pushback here too.
Yeah, well, if you've driven around the valley the past week, you might have seen these crowds of students protesting. Tonight, we're shifting the conversation from students to adults, hearing from parents about these walkouts.
When they see that civil rights are being violated with their own eyes and they do something about it in a peaceful protest, I couldn't be more proud of them.
This isn't safe, and it's leading the children to believe a narrative that they don't know whether it's true or not.
Students across the valley are choosing to speak out by walking out, as hundreds leave class to march the streets with their backpacks and signs protesting ICE. Some parents encouraging their kids' participation.
I think it's amazing. I think the kids know what's going on, and I think that they're standing up for what they believe in.
Really proud of them for using their voice for what they believe in. While other parents are voicing concerns that schools are behind the walkouts, despite districts across the valley maintaining that the protests are entirely student organized.
They could have got hurt. We didn't know where our kids were in the middle of the day. And then I find out that my child's not where I thought she was supposed to be. And she's walking down a street with 250 students. Like, somebody could have been trampled over. Somebody could have had a weapon. And it's political. Like, people get angry at politics, no matter what side you're on.
State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom.
That's a really good point right there. Politics has no place in the learning environment. That's the place where you train kids to think critically so they can come to those conclusions themselves. That was a good point. Yeah, Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction says students have the First Amendment right to peacefully protest. Do they? Do they really? And he does qualify. It should be done after school hours. But do students have the First Amendment right to peacefully protest without their parents' knowledge? We're talking about, minors here. Teachers and other school personnel should not be a part of a protest during class time, which is why they all said it. The students did it. They got it together just to cover themselves. And here you go, Summer. I thought you might like this one. This is a young man who stood before Minneapolis City Council to speak about fear his friends live with because of ICE. So the message here is lawlessness is good. Lawlessness is what keeps us safe. And enforcing the law is what harms us.
But I have a lot to say. I have been at school for the past couple months actually, with friends who are Mexican, Latino, Asian, and seeing the looks on their—
By the way, what's going on back here? I wish this thing would get, oh boy. Get that back in there. What's going on back here? What is this? This isn't a courtroom. What is that?
Their faces when anybody says anything about ICE is terrifying. And I look up to people like Greta Thunberg and Malala Yousafzai because they know what their rights are and what to say when people get kidnapped by ICE. And kids at school are my friends. I have a lot of Mexican friends, and all of them are terrified. And I want to say that when I'm with them, I feel angry. I feel furious because when I watch the news, I see people being kidnapped, people being hit by cars during protests, and I don't know what to say. I think that our government is collapsing. I think that what is happening in Minnesota, in anywhere that ICE has been marauding around, kidnapping people. I just think that to all the people who are out in detention centers and who are hiding away, don't give up, don't give in, and don't let the bastards grind you down. Thank you.
That's what they're teaching right there. Lawlessness is good. Here's just a couple of headlines. Central Texas students continue walking out of class to protest ICE operations. Hundreds of Indiana students walk out of schools to protest ICE. We saw this video already. Here's an X feed I thought was interesting. This person, Jamie is drunk, says, I received an alert from my kid's high school letting me know that a large portion of the school walked out at lunch today in protest to ICE with applause hands, and proud to hear it. Let's see what people had to say. Hope your kid was one of them, being civic-minded. There you go. We're being civic-minded when we embrace lawlessness. And paying attention to what's going on means that soon enough he or she can have some say on their own lot in life. Wow. How misguided. Because the result of this, as it advances, is that you will have no say on your own life. Everyone. All of my kids were home by lunch. My sons didn't even go into school, and my daughter left at lunch. Well, hip, hip, hooray. Very nice. I have faith in our next generation. Look at this mindset. They made sure to eat that free government lunch before walking out too, didn't they? Yeah. Are your kids participating? More about that. This person says, why are you proud? Because I didn't raise any pieces of that support Nazis in our streets. Hope that helps. There you go. Did you see the video in Marietta, Georgia, where the staff blocked the doors so the students couldn't walk out? Oh, that's shameful. Disgusting. Good kids, says Corn Pop. I was outside my niece's middle school on Wednesday. Monsters. Good on your kid and their schoolmates. And a big fat F-ice. Right there you go. That's what we need. We need more of that, don't we? Well, let me jump into Julie Behling here. Julie Behling is the producer of a film called
Beneath Sheep's Clothing.
I was thinking Beneath the Sheets. That's not exactly right, is it?
No.
Beneath Sheep's Clothing. And it is about the long march to the institutions and the culmination of it and what we're seeing today. If you can't see that there is most certainly a revolutionary socialist movement, which equals communist, then you're part of it.
In recent years, it's been hard not to notice that there are some bad apples in our schools. But it's not just a few, sadly. At this point, almost the entire orchard is going bad. A lot of us think back to our school days, and we have some fond memories. But our children today are being subject to what amounts to cult indoctrination within our schools. And it's happening to some degree in nearly every classroom in America as we speak. The way this indoctrination takes place goes like this. To indoctrinate the kids into woke, you've got to hyper-focus on identity. Racial identity, sexual identity, and gender identity, to name a few. The focus is on collective identity groups rather than individual identity and worth. Next, you've got to get kids to rate and sort themselves by how privileged they are based on their identities. Kids with less privilege are automatically oppressed. These kids are the new virtuous class in the woke cult. They are sometimes encouraged to marinate in rage, resentment, and grievance, the rocket fuel for woke. They are sometimes induced to feel outraged over injustices that occurred in the distant past, and made to believe that they are being held down and held back. Kids with too much privilege are the bad guys here. They're going to have to atone for that sin of privilege somehow. Privileged kids may become free from the designation of oppressor by first stepping aside to the margins, then by becoming active allies to those in the oppressed classes. To avoid being cast as an oppressor, they might even take on an oppressed identity themselves. Lastly, students are encouraged to constantly criticize, pick at, and even actively tear down the supposedly unjust systems of power as they engage in woke activism. Whether teachers, parents, or students realize it or not, this has become the true goal of modern education: to turn as many of our children as possible into rageful woke activists or their allies. This indoctrination process takes place with the help of social emotional learning curricula, SEL embedded into all of the subjects, critical ethnic studies curricula, and reinforced by the practice of restorative justice, where children from oppressed categories are not held accountable for breaking school rules. It's reinforced with critical pedagogy, as teachers are trained to embed opportunities for conversations with students about such things as identities, privilege, and oppression into everything from math to science to PE. It's reinforced with after-school clubs. It's reinforced with whole child education, where the schools assume jurisdiction over their students' lives in ever more intrusive and inappropriate ways, all in the name of helping the underprivileged. Cult indoctrination of this type has no place in America's schools. It churns out young people who are more anxious than ever, less prepared for a successful future than ever, and more obsessed with race, sexuality, gender, and privilege than ever. It churns out young people who are more divided than ever, more alienated from Christianity than ever, and more vulnerable to political radicalization than ever. So now that you know, what are you going to do about it? Each day in America, millions of parents send their children to school, where their kids will spend 16,000 hours throughout their formative years. But unfortunately, education today is a captured institution, almost from top to bottom. It's a lot like the capture of our medical system, which manufactures consent across the entire industry. During COVID, the CDC and American Medical Association promoted solutions that were often either ineffective or dangerous, while simultaneously blackballing safer, cheaper, and more effective solutions. Doctors and hospitals that followed the top-down guidelines were rewarded, and those who didn't were punished. With education, global bodies like the UN and UNESCO, the education wing of the UN, run by unelected leaders, have somehow been given the authority to lay out the trajectory of education for the entire world populace. With this power, they've chosen to focus on indoctrinating the world's children into a new ideology, rather than pushing for high academic standards. For some reason, the US Department of Education has followed suit, and NGOs and foundations have then poured many billions of dollars into developing these UN-approved curricula. Teachers and administrators in their college courses, teacher trainings, and with reinforcement from the teachers' unions, are conditioned to see their role in education in a certain way, and to fall in line with the woke systems and curricula. But how are the schools induced to implement this? With a lot of modern-day trickery. Pharmaceutical companies do market research to know which words to use in marketing their drugs to the populace, and the drug reps notoriously grease the wheels at the doctor's office, giving special perks to doctors who prescribe their drugs. Doctors accept this because of their training in medical schools funded by the pharmaceutical companies. In the case of education, curriculum companies approach school districts and states with a well-honed pitch and bundle of freebies. And instead of calling their curricula ideological capture or total inappropriate control over your child, they're called social emotional learning and whole child education. Who, after all, wouldn't want America's school children to have good social and emotional skills and to be developmentally well-rounded? Within these curricula and systems, there are some good policies mixed with those that are twisted or harmful to children. For instance, SEL and whole child education may help reduce bullying and potentially help some children get mental health counseling. But they also induce school kids to abandon a Judeo-Christian framework without parental knowledge or approval, and ensure that the World Health Organization and CDC capture the minds, hearts, and bodies of the entire rising generation. Parents may push back only to be called bigots, or to find that lobbying for change at the local level doesn't get them very far, as the school board members, administrators, and teachers aren't really the ones making the important decisions. Today,
Yeah, that's where we wanted to stop in that one. And just a couple more short clips here to really drive the point home.
whole child education also embraces comprehensive sexuality education, where the schools groom children beginning as young as possible to view genders and sexualities as a spectrum to be explored, and where they are taught by adults who are not their relatives that they, as minors, supposedly have the human right to experience sexual pleasure. Students may even be instructed on methods of achieving sexual pleasure alone or with partners, and all in the name of a well-rounded education. This can take place through books in the school libraries containing graphic sexual content, through dedicated curricula implemented during school hours, and also through after-school clubs.
That's sick, man. That's sick.
With this framework, students are taught that anything goes sexually as long as there is consent. With billions of dollars poured into it by NGOs and foundations, and under the guidance and mandate of the UN and UNESCO, whole child education also encompasses social and emotional learning. And it seeks to re-educate parents, teachers, and administrators to believe that it really is the school's place to assume such authority over students.
That's what you saw this week. And here is the last piece that really drives home the point that we want to make to you tonight.
In the case of education, curriculum companies approach school districts and states with a well-honed pitch and bundle of freebies. And instead of calling their curricula ideological capture or total inappropriate control over your child, they're called social emotional learning and whole child education. Who, after all, wouldn't want America's school children to have good social and emotional skills and to be developmentally well-rounded? Within these curricula and systems, there are some good policies mixed with those that are twisted or harmful to children. For instance, SEL and whole child education may help reduce bullying and potentially help some children get mental health counseling.
Change.
But they also induce school kids to abandon a Judeo-Christian framework without parental knowledge or approval, and ensure that the World Health Organization and CDC capture the minds, hearts, and bodies of the entire rising generation. Parents may push back only to be called bigots, or to find that lobbying for change at the local level doesn't get them very far, as the school board members, administrators, and teachers aren't really the ones making the important decisions. Today, America's schools have become essentially franchises of the UN, whose goal it is to push DEI and collectivism on everyone. Until this whole network of systemic wokeism is exposed and interrupted by you and I and decision makers at the local, state, and national levels, our schools will continue to churn out more and more woke, radicalized young people who are incompatible with the maintenance of freedom.
Yeah, that's the point right there. I think we should probably let's listen to that piece again. Until all of us decide, particularly get involved in your own town, city, go to your city council meetings, even if you don't have a child in school, find out what's going on, because as she pointed out, these NGOs, like Summer has pointed out here in the last article we put up, or the second to last, which we'll show you here in just a second, particularly one of those NGOs but the NGOs that come into your communities and promise freebies and grants and all kinds of things that will build up your infrastructure and make you look good, give you lots of money to buy lots of nice new things, but you're gonna
Well, one of the ways too that they tricked people into supporting that governor that got elected in Virginia is that they said, yeah, they said like they gave them perks, the people in government, that they would get houses, great deals on houses and stuff like this. So they
the
very much
government officials would have their homes paid for. What I assume while they're in office, and maybe I don't know if it continues after that, but yeah. So what happened in Virginia was particularly that Spanberger ran on, of course, being a moderate, and that she was going to make things affordable again. Well, she really did for her friends and for the elites in Virginia, but for the average person, no.
And that's temporary too, right? I mean, we know that with the World Health Organization that they were dangling if you invest, you'll get 35 to 1 on your investment. Well, the United Nations, we've gotten word that just this week that it's going bankrupt, primarily because the United States has pulled out, but also because, it's not being managed well. It's a fraudulent organization that doesn't have talent or skills. It's just a parasite, and it's been funneling all of its money and resources into building the cage around the world. But so anyway, it's just another example of how these things, the truth always comes out about these organizations, in other words. And so we are seeing the cracks. But as we have these cracks coming forward, and for example, like when the Trump administration went down to Venezuela and took Maduro out of power and that was a lot of illicit capital that was coming out of that oil money. And also, with the narcotics and the fentanyl and all of that whole ring. And so by cutting off that illicit capital, they're starting to run out of funds, this illicit capital that funds this nightmare cage that's being built, but they're going to become more and more desperate. And that's what I think they're trying to do right now is they're now showing their hand in a sense like, hey, look, we're not only organized in Minnesota, but for those of you who are paying attention, who can put the dots together, look at all the kids that we have on our side.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would point out too that in one of the videos a moment ago, she said that the Department of Education sadly has gone along with this and promoted it. However, in the year that Trump has been in office, since March, they have greatly defunded the Department of Education and have specifically identified social and emotional learning as a danger, as an embedded illegal DEI type curriculum. So let me play this last couple seconds here because this
By the way, I just wanted to let the people know that we did, if you pop over into the chat or you look underneath the video, we did get Julie's permission. I spoke with her today and she gave us permission to show these clips. She just said, can you please share the playlist? So those links, you can find the playlist in the chat or under the video. And also there's a link to her movie, Beneath Sheep's Clothing. So we would encourage you guys, those clips are like only 3 to 4 minutes and they're really excellent to really help people, like get people up to speed so they can start to grasp the magnitude of how our schools are captured.
Yeah, this is important. And her YouTube channel has 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
This is the most important message. And I'll share to you biblically in just a minute why that's the case. Listen to this last statement she makes here, because this is really what we want to get across to you. This is the death of the nation that you're looking at.
It's the attempted death.
Our schools will continue to churn out more and more woke, radicalized young people who are incompatible with the maintenance of freedom.
Incompatible with the maintenance of freedom. Because what was the message from Benjamin Franklin when asked what kind of government do we have after they had signed the Constitution? After that, they had met and argued and debated and developed it. And he said, it's a republic if you can keep it. And these people on the left do not care about a republic. They don't want a representative republic. They want a top down. They actually want an authoritarian system. They want someone to make these changes for them. So as you think about it, the two systems that are opposing one another right now, the two worldviews, one stands for constitutional republic, representative democracy. It's hard to use that word now because it's been so corrupted. And on the other side, you have people who want this pure democracy, or they believe that's what they're going to get. Well, they won't get that. I'm going to skip this video because this was making the point that I already made, that Trump administration has greatly defunded the Department of Education at the federal level so that they can't fund these things anymore. Now, certainly some of those projects are still being funded because they were signed into law and that it has to expire. But so that's a good point. I do want to jump already into
There is one more. I don't know if you can find it, but the one, what is driving liberal women crazy, where saving culture from itself, where she shows this storybook that kids are given. I just think it's
what's her name? Jenny Holland.
yes. So it's, the
Yeah,
channel is saving culture from itself. And the video is what is driving liberal women crazy. And it is applicable to kids too, because this is a children's book.
Yeah, this is she's going to show you one of the books.
We recommend this channel. I mean, she's not a Christian. She's a Roman Catholic, but but she has done some really great articulate work. She's a powerful communicator. So really great work about woke and how it's infiltrated.
She's one of our generation too. So if you're
She's Gen X, yeah.
if you're like us and you come from this generation where you got to experience a bit of normal America, it wasn't actually, but it felt that way. At least we didn't have this going on. And now you're living in this. It can be kind of shocking, because one of the points she made in a video was that she had lost all of her friends. It was when she was younger. They didn't, they were politically aware and talked about politics, but it didn't divide you. And now she's talked about, she's probably got, she said in her article, about 4 people that she can talk to.
Well, and to be fair, something that you and I identified when we were talking about that, it's true. Like for the longest time, I had friends from grammar school, I had friends from high school, college, from my workplace, and then like suddenly so many of those friendships were just brutally ripped away. But we have to remember, like what you and I were talking about, that back then we were encouraged not to be political. Like we were encouraged to just ignore whatever was going on with the news, and that is very much in and of itself a psychological operation, so that they could get away with setting up this system around us without anybody really noticing until we all noticed. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't be involved in politics. You don't need to, you don't need to get involved. And now that message of, like even as a Christian, when we want to bring our morality and share the truth about reality, and as it is clearly expressed in God's word, for example, we don't want to hear that. Don't bring your Christianity into the public square. So it's only gotten more and more intense as far as everybody else is invited to come inform their positions and opinions from different spheres of the social, cultural shades of the spectrum. But when it comes to Christians in America, no, we're not allowed to. And in fact, if we try to do that, what are we labeled as? Christian nationalists. We're labeled as New Apostolic Reformation or the Seven Mountain Mandate. And these are Christian heresies. Yeah. They are not what we are, but because we are, coming from the Reformed camp, and we're just sola scriptura, biblical Christians, all of Christ, all of life, that's somehow considered to be a threat. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, it certainly is a threat to the enemies of God. And so this clip is going to explain to you, why what has driven liberal women crazy. And when you're talking about liberal women, you're really talking about, the public education system for sure too. But she is specifically talking about Rachel Good. Check this out. This is very good.
Using one really small but very telling example from the kind of social justice culture that America has been swimming in for quite a long time, but in a very acute way since in the last decade or so. And I'm going to use that, or I'm going to do that by holding a mini story hour featuring this book, Not My Idea, a book about whiteness, which is by an author called Anastasia Higginbotham. Nice posh name there. This book was published in 2018, and as you can see, it's meant for really young children. It's a board book, so hardback, with mostly illustrations and very few words. And that's how we know that it's meant for really little kids, like preschool kids, before they've learned to read. I'll get into this book in a second, but what's important to note is that, well, this is just a book, and a book among many, trashy, kind of race-baiting, woke books meant to indoctrinate American children. This is one of the worst examples I've ever seen of an explicit attempt to traumatize and disturb white children, in particular for the color of their skin. And the case that I'm going to make after we look at this book is that someone like Renee Good has been participating and has been affected by this totally condoned form of culture and education for children in the United States. So I'm going to skip right to the worst part of this book. This plot of it is that a young girl, a small child, has her mother trying to explain to her police killings of, I think it's in this case, a Black man, and why she, as a child, bears some responsibility towards that. And it builds up to finally, at the very end of the book, on page 59, the child is offered a contract. The contract is binding you to whiteness. You get stolen lands, stolen riches, special favors, and whiteness gets to mess endlessly with the lives of your friends, neighbors, loved ones, and all fellow humans of color for the purposes of profit. Your soul, sign below. And there's a little caveat: land, riches, and favors may be revoked at any time for any reason. And here we see the fire, burning earth, the dollar, the filthy dollar. And look at that, a devil's tail. So it's actually telling the child that they are signing a contract. They're signing their soul with the devil simply by existing. Ergo, the child is akin to a devil just by existing as a white child with white skin in America. Whiteness is a bad deal. It always was. Dude, we could see your pointy tail.
How about that? How about that? That's in the school system. So is there any wonder that these poor kids have been so corrupted? Is the best word. Completely and utterly corrupted. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 6, Jesus, the source, said, he declared that whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble would be better off having a great millstone fastened around his neck and being drowned into the depths of the sea. Says the same thing about, in the parable of the talents, about the servant who took his money and buried it in the ground, or his good gift of God, his blessing, and did nothing with it. Essentially, he's cast into outer darkness. This person was never one of us to begin with. It is righteous judgment of the good shepherd who fiercely guards those entrusted to his care. So it's personal application and societal application. Children are not morally neutral clay to be shaped according to the fashions of the age or the spirit of the age. They're all image bearers of God, entrusted to parents, the church, and the broader community, including the school, to be nurtured in the truth. To corrupt their understanding of reality and virtue and law or God himself is to commit a grave offense against both divine order and human dignity itself. Scripture consistently presents the formation of the young as sacred stewardship. Train up a child in the way he should go. Proverbs 22:6. And the fathers are commanded to bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Ephesians 6:4. It also says in the Proverbs that how a child is discipled when he's young. You know, it says, teach them early and they will not depart from it. That goes both ways, doesn't it? So the communists know this. They know this. Somehow they know this. And I think they know this because their worldview is from hell. It's from Satan himself. But let's look at this this article in a full screen. There we go. Now, is this the one we want to start with, Summer?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. We
wanna-
could do that, or we could start with the one that we put out yesterday. It just depends on how you want to escalate it.
Let's finish up with that one because that'll be a good way to tie it all together.
Okay.
All right. So this is weaponized formation, how ideological subversion is targeting America's children. Student walkouts, migrant exploitation, or critical immigration theory, and the war against ordered liberty. So this is an ideological conquest from within. To conquer a nation, you don't need to begin with tanks or troops. You begin by getting its people, especially its children and dependents, to accept your ideology. You heard that just a moment ago in Julie Behling's clip. That is what ideological subversion looks like in practice. And it's now taking place in our schools, inside illegal immigrant intake centers. What we're witnessing is not a protest culture. It is internal capture. This is a quote from Willy Munzenberg. He was a German communist and one of the founders of the now infamous Frankfurt School. We shall make the West so corrupt it stinks. We're going to rot them from the within. Folks, this has been going on since right after the Russian Revolution, which was in 1917. Very soon after that, the Communist Party USA was founded.
Now, I do want you to click on that breakout right there because it's quite helpful. The nation's plot in vain. If you click on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this right here.
Yeah.
I'll open it in a new tab. Here we go. Okay. Do you want to work through this one? Why don't you do that? Because this echo is driving me nuts.
Okay, so I just wanted to point out to you guys right here about Gen Z and Generation Alpha. That the Gen Z is the transitional generation. This is as far as through the eyes of UNESCO and the United Nations and the Fabian Marxist lens, the globalists, in other words. They go by many monikers, but Gen Z is the transitional generation, and they are the deconstruction phase. And so what I want to point out here, I've done some articles about how they use consumer research reports, these reports that are supposed to be future casting. They're supposed to tell you about how what's happening in the culture and what's expected with the trends coming down the pipe, and how that's actually quite manipulative. What they're actually doing is guiding you and nudging you psychologically into compliance by the way that they use these surveys that they do. And so Gen Z is a downstream product of engineered formation, and that's education without God, the God of the Bible, which undergirds our Constitution and the moral foundations of Western civilization. So they've been indoctrinated into education without God, and morality without, therefore, truth, and identity without the body. You know, this idea that you can be whatever sex that you want to be, that's somehow going to magically happen, whether you're going to do surgeries or hormonal injections, you know. And then there's obviously huge consequences to that, because if you do that route, you can be, it will shorten your lifespan. It can cause you to become sterile. It can cause cancer. You might even have infections if you get the surgeries. So anyway, this is this generation. This is Gen Z. And Gen Z is, they are voting now. They are of age to vote. And they're also been trained into sexuality without boundaries, as we have seen. And they were raised inside a moral and psychological operation designed by people who are hostile to God's ordered liberty. And as a result, Gen Z is the most spiritually unformed generation in American history. Though I need to clarify and say that, that they are actually, the system is a religion, you know. So I don't let me confuse you on that. Like, but it's an Eastern mysticism, and it's been secularized. You know, like the clinical language that it uses, you know, just in the same way that they made it to where, you know, people weren't going to their pastors to get, or their elders anymore to get guidance through God's truth and wisdom. Instead, people were encouraged to go to life coaches and therapists and psychologists and things like this. So anyway, Gen Z is the most spiritually unformed generation in American history. In other words, they're open. They're left wide open to manipulation. The most porn exposed generation ever recorded. It's so easy when they're on their phones for just 1 or 2 links away, and all of a sudden they're being exposed to violent porn, not just porn, but violent porn. The most socially isolated generation, the most emotionally fragile, shaped by SEL's self-worship framework. So it trains kids to be obsessed with their feelings and to be obsessed with their interpretation of reality and how things make you feel. So you can imagine that would be incredibly destabilizing, the most hostile to authority, because expressive autonomy is their creed. So we've talked about this a lot with what's going on with the police cams, and seeing particularly the women who have been shown to be the most particularly susceptible to this type of programming and influence. And this combination makes Gen Z profoundly vulnerable to deception and fragmentation and chaos. And they represent the end of an era. So you've got Gen Z, you know, end of the alphabet, deconstruction of the inherited moral order, the collapse of the old world. We're not going back. You know, that's what Kamala Harris was running on. Madonna said, not everybody's coming to the future. So the cultural groundwork for the Great Reset. So Gen Z is not the destination, they are the bridge. And then you've got Generation Alpha, which is, you know, year zero. So in communistic terms, communist order year zero, Generation Alpha is the first generation born entirely in the 21st century and the third millennium. The key markers are that many will live to the 22nd century. The first wave reaches adulthood in the 2030s. So if you think about Agenda 2030, by 2030, they are projected to make up 11% of the workforce. Roughly 48 million Gen Alphas are in the US by 2025. Roughly 65 roughly 65% will work in jobs that do not yet exist. We have shown you with our work on social emotional learning and workforce development projects that are in rural communities, how they are really trying to train, they are working overtime to train kids for jobs that don't exist today. Because again, the goal is to smash and break everything that exists right now in order that they would then, the only jobs that are out there are their jobs. In other words, so that's been the goal. And that would be, if anybody gets curious about what does that look like right now, you can look up K-12 STEM education and workforce development in rural areas. And we do have a copy of that embedded in our articles. If anyone's interested, please feel free to email us. We can give you, lots of information on this to understand how they are socially engineering toward that goal. And globally, Generation Alpha is projected to reach 2.2 billion. It's supposed to be the largest generation in world history. So 2.2 billion worldwide, this Generation Alpha. So this is why it's really important to talk about what's happening with the kids, because as these kids come of age, Generation Alpha is not old enough to vote yet, but they're certainly getting them out there on the streets. And I can tell you that growing up in inner city Atlanta, going to a very progressive school in the mid 90s, I was made to do social justice plays, that seemed like benign and seemed like a good idea. But again, we had to write skits and come up with plays and do these plays to our community, where the community would come and watch the plays on social justice issues. I Too Am America was what it was called. And it was also based in Langston Hughes. So imagine how this has accelerated since then. And like we've said to you, it was the dial was really turned up in 1994, where it just basically flooded the school systems, and it's only increased more and more. They've just incrementally turned up the dial. So Gen Z was formed through confusion, and Generation Alpha is being formed for compliance. Okay. So again, they're thinking of it as alpha, year zero, the year one of, the beginning of the communist system. So you can look through more of these core insights in this document right here. I don't want to take up too much of the time, but I did want to point out the importance of thinking about Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And Gen Z is around ages roughly 12 to 27 years old right now, at about 68 million in America. And then you've got Generation Alpha, which is born in year 2025 until 2013, and they are around 11 years old right now. So what you see on the streets is Generation Alpha and Generation Z. Those were the ones that were out en masse, over the past week, and they were protesting ICE. And so it's important to understand that, just by the sheer numbers of this giant, obviously Gen Z is a really big population as well. They're a big voting bloc. One of the reasons that they had to take out Charlie Kirk, because he was reaching them, he was having success. And so they couldn't have that, right? They couldn't afford to have Charlie Kirk having success and making gains with this generation, because there's such a large voting bloc. And then in tandem with this, we have all the millions and millions of people that were brought in illegally, and they're being brought into these intake centers that we're going to talk about more tonight, that are literally indoctrinating them into the communist, socialist, social justice system that is aggressive, and it is only interested in taking down the United States and the US Constitution and ending liberty once and for all. So that is the charge. And it really is, we really are at a pivotal moment right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. And what we're showing you on the screen now is, I think Summer has identified, would be if she's in her, I think she was in her 20s, right? Her early to mid 20s. So she would be Generation Z.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
27 to 12 is 12 years old to 27 is Generation Z. So they were born like 1997 to 2012.
Yeah. So this is, we did this with Matthew Littlefield, and we certainly do intend to actually do a series on this, because it is shocking. What we've pointed out here too, tonight, is what's going on in the schools. This is the result of it. Right. You see this this girl who fits the demographic of Generation Z,
Mm-hmm.
12 to 27 age range, who have, I mean, you see what they've had to do. They've had to
Again,
hand
yeah,
and foot
because
with a helmet.
they're the most emotionally fragile because they've been totally untethered from reality, and they've just been indulged like that. Their feelings are the utmost important. You know, it's this expressive autonomy is their creed, and also so when you give them boundaries or you give them consequences, they go absolutely ballistic, and they've been programmed to think that they have to rage against the machine, and that the existing system of law and order is actually their oppressor, and that it's something that they have to overcome. And you see what you see on the screen right now is literally, I mean, we've watched hundreds of these videos at this point. And we want to talk to you, like do a whole video about this. I know we keep saying that, but it's just like something else comes up and then we need to talk about it. But anyway, it's just over and over and over and over again. You see that this is a response. And so it's like, it's really concerning because let's say the Trump administration, like does everything right and gets us on track. We're still going to be in a country with a bunch of people that have been radicalized against the American way of life and that can't possibly understand that they are voting against their own best interest.
They've been driven crazy. They've been driven insane by this doctrine, and that's what Jenny Holland was speaking about, what she's written about over in her Substack, which is a good support to what it is that we're trying to point out to you here. So why is this alarming? Why is it not really a student protest? So what occurred on January 30th, a couple days ago, was not an organic eruption of youthful conscience. It was a coordinated political action using minors as instruments carried out inside taxpayer-funded institutions entrusted with forming citizens, not activists. When K through 12 students, some reportedly as young as kindergarten, we showed you that. We showed you evidence of that, are removed from classrooms, supplied with slogans, encouraged to chant obscenities at federal institutions, and framed as moral arbiters of national policy, something fundamental has broken. I think it's probably good to just continue to show this. It's, something fundamental is certainly broken.
Yeah, that's just
Civic
not one
education.
person. It's consistent. It's like you can see it, and then it turns into, oh, you man, and there's all these keywords. They all have the same, like, once they're triggered, they all use the same catchphrases.
This is a good point you've put here in this article. It's not civic education. This is ideological conscription. What conscription really means is that you've been recruited as a soldier for a cause. Kindergarten, little kids. Remember what Jesus said about that. It'd be better for you if a millstone were hung around your neck and you were thrown into the ocean. Children do not possess the developmental capacity to evaluate complex constitutional questions or the political circumstances of our day, particularly immigration enforcement, federalism, due process, or national sovereignty. That vulnerability is precisely why they are being targeted. We're watching formation being weaponized. It's not an accidental pattern. It's translational. Establishment media portrayed these walkouts as grassroots uprisings against federal overreach, echoing familiar protest mythology. But a closer examination reveals a top-down ideological pipeline. Once again, ideological narratives produced at the university. Teachers, through critical pedagogy, are taught, they're trained to go out into the schools and teach this. We don't send our kids to school today to receive a deposit of wisdom or knowledge. They go there today to create new knowledge from themselves. Everyone's perspective is valid because there is no truth. It drives people insane. And it comes from the university and non-governmental organization level. Translated by activist educators and union networks, particularly in this case, the teachers' unions. Implemented in K through 12 environments. Enforced through social pressure, moral shaming, and institutional permission. This is translational politics, where abstract ideology is converted into lived behavior through children. When schools preemptively cancel classes so students can go protest, they're no longer neutral educational institutions. Now, people can't be neutral, but institutions should be. They become operational nodes. The presence of coordinated messaging, uniform slogans, synchronized walkouts all across the nation, and institutional encouragement disqualifies the claim of spontaneity. They lose their moral argument immediately. But of course, as we said, they don't care about being coherent. They want power, and they're full of resentment because they don't have it. This is manufactured dissent. And this is a piece that Alex Newman wrote today. I guess it came out today. Rallying against ICE, students across the U.S. join the revolution. Victims of government indoctrination, unite. At least thousands of brainwashed American K-12 students, often encouraged by educators, quote unquote, walked out of classrooms nationwide. It was billed by organizers as coordinated protest against U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. But the reality is much more sinister. So if you go to our article, you can click through and read Alex Newman's article. And I guess we can probably let people know that later this month, you'll see us on Liberty Sentinel. Is that right, Summer? We're going to be filming it before that, but
Yes.
You'll be able to see us on Liberty Sentinel, on their platforms, their satellite television channel, and wherever else they are. You'll be
Yeah,
able to
we're very
read
excited
our work on
and
Liberty Sentinel
very,
too.
very grateful for that.
Yeah. So why are children the target? It aligns precisely with what we already know about Gen Z and Generation Alpha, which Summer has broken down for you very well already. Because when you detach the people from God, demoralization, that leads to destabilization, morality without truth, identity without embodiment. Authority is framed as oppression, so lawlessness becomes virtue. Bitter becomes sweet, or sweet becomes bitter. Emotional validation is elevated above law, duty, and restraint. And then you have the crises that we currently see. And from that, they normalize the society into the ideology that they want, their ideology. Children shaped in this environment are not being taught how to think, but what to feel, who to blame, and which institutions to despise. They're being conditioned to see law enforcement as violence, borders as immorality, national sovereignty as hate, and obedience as injustice. So again, exchanging the truth for lies, claiming to be wise, they became fools. And this is not compassion. This is moral inversion. And it is a constitutional crisis. Federal immigration enforcement is not an abstract opinion. It is a constitutionally authorized function of the national government. When minors are trained to chant F ICE, and they were, that's why they had to blur the screen out. They're not engaging in policy debate. They're being trained to reject the legitimacy of the state itself. This is how republics collapse, not by invasion, but by delegitimization from within, carried out by institutions originally meant to preserve civic order. Schools exist. They should be transmitting constitutional literacy, civic responsibility, moral restraint, and respect for lawful authority. When those institutions instead mobilize children against the rule of law, the line from education to subversion has already been crossed. And this is the point that we like to make for you all the time. The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution, right? It's been openly admitted by revolutionary movements themselves for over a century. The stated grievance, today it's immigration. Yesterday it was LGBT stuff. That is merely the catalyst, not the objective. That's why it's always changing. The deaths in Minneapolis, tragic and emotionally charged though they are, were immediately repurposed as a mobilizing spark. And that pattern has been well established. Right from the French Revolution on, organizing efforts reportedly traced back to university-based coalitions where activist groups, labor unions, and ideological associations functioned as force multipliers, not mourners. Power through destabilization. Today, America's schools have effectively become franchises of the United Nations. We saw this in the Julie Behling video just a moment ago. Advancing DEI and collectivist ideology across the system until this entire network of systemic wokeism is exposed and disrupted by citizens and decision makers, us, and the ones we elect. Well, then our schools will continue to produce increasingly radicalized young people who are fundamentally incompatible with the preservation of freedom. Today, America's schools have effectively become franchises.
That's the same again.
So why this meets the threshold of treason, right? Treasonous conduct within the schools, on the streets, because treason is not limited to espionage or foreign flags. At its core, it is the deliberate undermining of a constitutional order. When government-funded institutions use their authority to over children to incite hostility toward lawful federal functions in coordination with ideological organizations while suppressing parental consent, that is not protest. That is internal sabotage. And it's happening inside the walls, my friends. The enemy is within, using our own children, funded by our own tax dollars. And as we said earlier, this is a big point. The divide is not left and right. The divide is ordered liberty versus managed chaos, rooted in systematic humanistic codes, divorced from God's eternal truth, which is the only foundation that can ground any society in true liberty. The point to be made here, once again, is without God's moral law as the foundation of your nation, your system of law, you can't have liberty. Liberty will not survive. It's the difference between citizenship and agitation, education and indoctrination, moral responsibility and emotional manipulation. And the reason it's so dangerous is that children can't opt out. You saw that. Parents had to come pull them out of school. And they will determine, these are the ones who will determine the future of our world. So this represents an attempted civilizational erasure, as we have warned repeatedly here in our analysis. Children must be protected, particularly from those who would cause them real, true harm, who would lie to them, who would mislead them, who would disciple them in darkness. A constitutional republic cannot survive if its future citizens are trained from childhood to despise the law, reject authority, and view the nation itself as illegitimate. So what happened on January 30th was yet another warning flare, one that should stop everyone in their tracks and demand careful attention. It's obviously not a youthful awakening. It is institutional betrayal. And the longer this is dismissed as student activism, the closer we move to a point where the republic can no longer recognize itself because it has failed to protect the very ones who are entrusted to inherit this covenant of liberty. All right, you want to jump in?
Well, there's more. Wait, there's more.
Well, I don't
Just
wanna-
one, just the weaponization of the vulnerable is a really good segue to the next one.
So what we're witnessing is not isolated activism. It's a coordinated strategy of weaponization through vulnerability. Gen Z was destabilized. Gen Alpha is being conditioned throughout this normalization process. Illegal immigrants are being instrumentalized. Each group is targeted not because of strength, but because of susceptibility. They're targeted for these very reasons. Children formed without moral grounding, historical, accurate, proper, truthful historical memory, or constitutional literacy are easily mobilized through emotion, grievance, and fear. Illegal migrants, many desperate, uninformed, or exploited, are also used as moral shields and political leverage in a conflict they didn't create and they don't control. They've been lied to and used. In both cases, human beings are reduced to tools. That is not compassion. That is utilitarian exploitation. And that same transnational apparatus that dissolves borders dissolves childhood, conscience, and consent. It turns confusion into protest and dependency into power and suffering into strategy. And the objective is certainly not justice, though they say that's what they want. The objective is destabilization. We have successfully been demoralized. We have two rival moral orders, two separate nations within the same country. So the goal is destabilization through the vulnerable, through the youngest, to impose this Marxian world socialist order, world socialism. A republic cannot endure when its children are trained to hate its laws and its guests are used to dismantle its sovereignty. That's not reform and it's not mercy. That is managed subversion, and it depends entirely on the continued weaponization of the innocent. Those little ones that Jesus was speaking about. Yeah, and we just covered this part right here. I'm going to jump into that. Let's see. Right here. Well, that's just where we were. Here it is. This is the article
Jonathan
put out over the weekend. It's actually a video on YouTube. And it's a video that we did in 2024 showing how we got here. I'll show you the first couple of minutes of this so you can see what's going on. And particularly here, pay attention to that you're not supposed to be legally observing. And today, that's the label they've given themselves, legal observers. So check out a minute or so of this.
Lee Richards investigates. I am in San Diego. There is a secret migrant facility here on San Diego School District property. Right here, Polk and 41st Street. And will not answer any questions about what is going on. Check this out.
Hey, remove this one. What's wrong?
I'm media.
So you media, you put on my face.
What's going on?
Don't put on my face.
See what's going on. This is on University Avenue in San Diego. And it looks like a group of migrants are loading the bus. Somebody's coming out here right now. What's going on?
But we're not going to answer any questions. Please.
Why? What's going on? Where's the owner?
Guards out here? There's a gentleman that's refusing to leave.
Not refusing.
I do not want to have to call the police. Please
what is
exit.
going on out here?
That's the managed takedown of the nation. Right there. That's what you're watching.
We're gonna watch this operation in real time, folks. You won't get this anywhere else. This is like ground zero of this action. Military vehicles down there by the Rio Grande.
I point out here that Border Patrol was ordered under Joe Biden, ordered to stand down, to not police the border. And here's one more from you'll see this hotel here.
This hotel's closed. Is every single car here is for law. We have a hotel called the Yuma Cabana Motel. And this hotel is closed to the general public. No vacancy at this hotel, but it is hosting migrants that are in the United States illegally.
Look at all those women and children.
And it's closed in. They're getting some sort of meals or something at this location. What in the world is going on? More people are coming out to get meals. Now this hotel is closed. It says no vacancy. What's going on here in Yuma, Arizona? This situation is
okay. There's that. Now, in this piece, under this video, we included a breakdown of what we reported for you in 2024 from that video and how it relates directly to today. 2 years ago, in January 2024, we reported on the subversive operation of illegal mass migration, the element of the immigration crisis most Americans were being trained not to see was a long-running, highly facilitated migration pipeline, moving people in the United States through NGO networks, same ones that today are many of the same ones that are responsible for indoctrinating the children. Also in temporary processing sites, close to the public hotels and operational corridors. It was never about humanitarian aid. It was a managed system to weaken American society. Now, today, early in 2026, that same ecosystem has adapted to harboring, hiding, and training the millions of unauthorized migrants now in the U.S. to work against American society. And of course, what matters in an information war is a true record of what was happening while the institutions insisted that it wasn't. And this is it. Replacement migration. It's not a conspiracy theory. It is a theory within the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations. The theory of planned migration to achieve a particular objective, whether it's demographic, economic, or social. And the point is, weaker nations or regions replace the population of a developed nation. It's probably important just to reiterate here the point, because you hear it a lot. We're a nation of immigrants, right? We should be welcoming to this, but it's not true. That's a meme. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the first to say it, and JFK repeated it. And scholars have since just repeated it over and over and over as if it is the truth, but it's not true. We're not a nation of immigrants. Immigrants didn't build the place. We're a nation of settlers. And particularly what that means is settlers are people who come from a society and go to a place where there is no society and create one. Immigrants are those who come from a place or a society into an already developed society, and they're meant to assimilate to it. We talked about this more in the last video. But you see a consistent and repeatable pattern. Today's street-level organization and obstruction of ICE operations can be understood clearly in this 2024 report that we did. Migrant processing facilities operating like restricted military compounds. As a matter of fact, look at this. I'll show you. Well, this is what it looked like at the border when these border agents were told to stand down.
For law enforcement.
Why are you guys making it easier for people to enter the country illegally?
Why do you think we are?
Why do you think we are?
live. This happens every single day.
There's the van. Look. Now watch. We're gonna watch this operation in real time, folks. You won't get this anywhere else. There's another one. Border Patrol sitting here watching and waiting. We're going to see this in real time, folks. Watch this in real time.
See Border Patrol? Now check this out. So he's gonna do is he's gonna let him out, and he's gonna line them up. He's gonna take a picture of everyone, and then take a picture of himself, and that's gonna be his proof that he got his load to the to the wall.
Proof of life.
Right, and through the wall, and then he gets paid.
Here comes another one. Large van. Look at all this. Look at all this. Look at all this, folks. Look at all this.
And they just walk through the border.
And they don't have any self-consciousness about the fact that these people are just coming through and being filmed. I mean, the JLR is right there, with the camera, and they're still just coming through like no big deal.
I couldn't tell if that was you back then or you now.
Yeah, it's me now.
Yeah, and it's all. I'll mute it so we can talk. But it's all being. And Border Patrol was happy for Jonathan Lee Riches to be there filming this because they didn't. There was nothing they could do.
Yeah, it was actually Border Patrol that gave him tips, like, "Hey, go check out this place and this place because they've got this really sketchy compound that they've got set up that they won't let anybody come in and film and see and ask questions about what's going on." So Border Patrol was like giving him tips on where to go and check out this operation. And yeah, so you can see that this is really only globalists could wrangle this. Like, this is coming from the highest levels of power. I mean, I can tell you as somebody who lived abroad for 13 years, and I had to be like, there's no way in the countries that I was living in that I could get away with something like that. Like if I didn't do my visa properly, I didn't have my work visa done properly, you would have been kicked out. You would have been hunted down and kicked out of the country. And so this is what the policies are in place or what they want to have happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. Look at this overview of this facility. This is the facility in San Diego that they didn't want him to be filming. This is in like in Afghanistan, something like this. So I was saying there, it looks like a forward base in Afghanistan. So the same organization that goes into this is the same organization that's happening on the streets of Minnesota, LA, New York, Chicago, wherever else. And you know that this is a military-like operation because look at the order. Look at the way it's run. It's just as organized as the student walkout.
And they say it's on private property and you're not allowed to come on and you're not allowed to film and you're not allowed to ask for the owner, for the person in charge.
Let's play this section that Summer did about
Reduction Act is funding these border entries to have them overhauled and to have them brought up to speed and up to par, if you will, to the standards of their stakeholders. Okay, so again, this is San Luis, Arizona border port of entry. The United States has 167 land ports of entry, also known as border stations, of course. These facilities control entry into or departure from the U.S. for persons or materials. So through the bipartisan infrastructure law, through the Inflation Reduction Act, they are modernizing 20 land ports of entry along the northern border and 6 land ports of entry along the southern border. So of the 21 paving projects, so paving the roads, 6 are on the northern border and 15 are on the southern border. And as you read into this as well, it points out that all lease purchases are on the southern border. So the modernized port of entry stations that we're looking at here, this is one of them that you see right here, will benefit the supply chain, labor market, okay, people coming in, labor market, security, climate change resilience, human experience, community livability, and, wait for it, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. So, boom. So you want to think about corporate governance. You want to think about stakeholders. You want to think about ESG and SDG approved. This is the Inflation Reduction Act, funding this, overhauling on the northern and southern borders of the United States and making them like state-of-the-art facilities and basically setting up like what will work in tandem with the Internet of Things, surveillance, track and trace, state-of-the-art. And of course, it has to be sustainable and climate friendly.
Mm-hmm. You know, everywhere this has happened, even in Sweden, where the citizens have long prided themselves on tolerance, there's widespread anger about rising crime and unprecedented levels of social friction in a formerly homogenous country. Now, today, it's anathema to desire a homogenous country, right? You're a racist if you say something like that. The media and academia tend to promote this idea of erasing identities, at least for the native population, right? See, there's the point. Somebody's losing here, and it's always the native population, right? The host population, the host ethnicity always loses out. So that's the consistent, repeatable pattern. The organization there is the same organization that you see today with these kids out in the streets protesting, and the violence in Minnesota, San Diego, Yuma, and Yakima Springs, California. You can see all these examples in that video. By early 2026, Minneapolis became the focus of coordinated confrontations, where it has been exposed that street-level activists and protesters are receiving targeted training to track, harass, confront, and obstruct immigration, customs, and enforcement agents during lawful operations. And of course, they now have taken on the moniker legal observers. And Summer created these t-shirt examples here. That is nothing but a moral inversion. Legitimacy laundering, right? When lies wear legal clothing, it's game over. So legal observer is a strategic phrase, right, that actually exposes the incoherence of the movement's claimed purpose and the nefarious goals of the organizations and officials supporting it. While it's true that Americans can and should observe, record, and hold law enforcement accountable, here's the scandal. Those same people who in 2024, 2023, 2021, who were demanding silence are now claiming moral authority, demanding transparency. So in our 2024 report, now with the context of current events, that video will show you exactly how the ones protecting violent criminal aliens in 2026 today were the same ones shutting out any truly legal observers attempting to document lawlessness in 2021 through 2024. True authoritarian regimes function by moving the moral boundary line to wherever it needs to be today. But the truth is, today's protesters and their spokesmen only make appeals to the Constitution and Bill of Rights when it benefits their goals to hollow it out. ICE protesters in Minnesota, Chicago, New York City, Los Angeles, and their well-funded training groups during the Trump administration are continuing the same anti-American migration operation uncovered during the Biden administration, only now under new terms and tactics. these labels, and you saw these with the kids protesting, legal observer, rallying cries like stolen land and there are no illegal people. What those really do is they function like a permission structure for lawlessness, basically, for escalation, to create the circumstances favorable to bring about world socialism or global utopianism, or more precisely, communism. That's not politics. What that is, and what we're witnessing today, and what they conscripted these kids into, is a war for the very heart of America. Now, when Trump took office in 2025, the federal government prioritized enforcement of immigration law, beginning, as stated, with the most violent, egregiously criminal offenders first, those with serious criminal histories. Predictably, Trump's enforcement policy triggered an adjustment of migrant operations from subversion to outright and open opposition, media campaigns, and protest culture. Funding and organizational infrastructure shifted from protest to operational obstruction. Subversion by moral inversion to collapse America. And what we say is America does not need a revolutionary reset. America needs a reformation, a return to truth, repentance, and moral clarity under God's order. These are the conditions, the only conditions where liberty can survive and thrive. If the public is trained to call obstruction observation, to call lawlessness lawfulness, to call law enforcement violence, to call national sovereignty hate, then the republic doesn't fall by invasion, it collapses by inversion. Now, Summer, I want you to explain this part. And do you have your article open on your computer? Because I might show at least the visual of.
Are you down to the Alex Preddy?
Yeah.
Part.
Yeah. Start
Let's
with.
see.
Mass migration is not only a border event. What happens after legal entry becomes an issue of governance inside the nation. So it's not just about the border. It was never intended to only be about the border. It wasn't intended to be about LGBTQIA+++, two-spirit, blah, blah, blah. It was always intended to be about the revolution. I'll lead you off here. In 2026, these NGO-linked networks and receiving structures continue operating across the U.S., but now their function is less about temporary relief and more about cultural insulation, helping illegals preserve home identity as a primary loyalty structure, preserve their culture, their society, to bring their society and have it exist here in contradiction to ours, while opposing assimilation into American civic order.
That's why you see.
pattern. Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm here now.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Okay, you want to wrap it up?
I want you to read about the New American Development Center.
Okay.
So this point has been made. When the opposite occurs repeatedly, when systems preserve division, identity conflict, political polarization, when they embed it in the minds of school kids, then this claim that it was organic, that it was spontaneous, all that goes out the window.
Right. Because again, like if you guys go through if you're curious, like I've done a couple of breakouts about these big research studies that they put out, like Pew or Deloitte, or McKinsey, any of these, Gallup. A lot of these polls are done to basically gauge where the population's at, to see what the reactions are, so that they can then take measures to continue nudging the population, adjust their messaging, and nudging the population in the direction they want them to go. So it's social engineering. And one of the things that we know about the kids in schools is that they are surveying them to death. Like they are like constantly taking surveys. And again, like imagine the narcissism that brings. out of a child, because you're magnifying all of their feelings and thoughts. And then what happens is, based on those answers, they're constantly being fed back as a live feedback loop into the system, where they can then come back and tweak their ways of, massage the messaging and in the most calibrated way to manipulate the kids in the direction that they want to go. So when you see these surveys and these polls, you have to have that deeper level of understanding that it's more about, and it also can be used as a mechanism of, targeting, finding targets, like people that they would consider like, okay, those are the ones that are like a lost cause. And so they need to be discriminated against. They need to be given higher pricing, all of these kinds of things, and it will come to a point where when we're in the grocery store, like if they get their way, I'm not saying it's like a done deal. God can do amazing things. And we do have a lot to hope for right now. We do believe that there are people in the American government that are actively trying to really stop this. And there's a lot of evidence to say that they're actively trying to do that and making gains. So I'm not saying that all is lost. But if this system comes online, like you could be looking at going into the grocery store and the price is different based on your social credit score, or maybe you're not even allowed to get in certain things. This audience is very smart. You guys all know that. But to think of that in terms of these surveys that come out and these polls. But anyway, that was sort of me digressing. The next point in this that we wanted to talk about is when Alex Preddy, so I'll just go ahead and start reading it. The New American Development Center, a window into the architecture of subversion by inversion. So the death of Alex Preddy did not occur in a vacuum. It occurred in front of a specific kind of institution, one that reveals far more than the media is willing to examine. In widely circulated footage, Preddy is seen positioned in front of the New American Development Center, an organization whose own public-facing mission aligns precisely with a broader network of UN Sustainable Development NGOs operating across the United States. These are not neutral community organizations. They are intake and conditioning hubs. There are hundreds of these centers, just like this one, operating in American cities, often funded directly or indirectly by taxpayer dollars, illicit capital coming in from drug flows and trafficking, all kinds of nefarious things. International NGOs, those are like some of our greatest enemies, these NGOs, and UN aligned development frameworks. And their function is not assimilation into American civic life. Their function is the opposite. It's to preserve foreign identity, basically, like, tell that group that they should keep their identity, coddle them and all of that, indulge them in that, and sever allegiance to the American constitutional order and inculcate them into a worldview that is actually hostile to the nation that receives them. So again, just to bring the scope wider, we've seen this throughout Western civilization, how this is working in this fashion. So this is not a coincidence, and it is a design. From aid to indoctrination, manufacturing chaos agents. So organizations like the New American Development Center operate under the Marxian language of, like if you go onto the website, we've shown you this before, you go onto the website, you're going to see equity, resilience, support services, but their ideological DNA is unmistakable. They mirror the framework laid out in the United Nations migration literature, which openly reframes migrants as agents of development. We've talked to you about that about a year and a half ago, or maybe it was 2 years. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. Yeah, and as human capital.
Yeah.
Not as future citizens to be integrated, but as instruments to transform the host societies. This is why assimilation is treated as suspect, even immoral. Don't strip them of their culture, but however, the host culture, the native population, is told that they're not allowed to have their culture. American history, culture, and biblical moral foundations are restricted. Grievance, victimhood, and ideological resentment are exalted. So for example, the Marxian eschatology of utopian social justice is what's accepted, but anything that's outside of that framework is suppressed and aggressively combated against in whatever forms that they can get away with, essentially. And so these centers that are all across the country, that Alex Preddy, one of them being that Alex Preddy was actually shot in front of one. These centers function as fast-tracked indoctrination pipelines,
That's the
radicalizing.
one I'm showing on screen right now.
Okay, yeah. So radicalizing illegal migrants against the founding principles of America and training them explicitly and implicitly to see American law enforcement, borders, and sovereignty as enemies. And they even train illegal migrants to see American patriotism, the commitment to preserve our inherited covenant of liberty, as the enemy. So, of course, the results are predictable. You're going to have confrontation, disorder, and escalation. And when we zoom out from Minnesota, the Minnesota moment, we can see more clearly the corrupt institutions have also influenced and brainwashed Americans, through education. Again, I wrote this article right before the marches happened, with the kids. So, here we are. And so anyway, all of this is just to say that they're literally for people that claim, like the United Nations and the WEF and the Davos crew and the Democrats, they always say that they're all about human rights. Well, that's also a satanic inversion, as we've seen time and time again, because they don't care about the rights of people. They don't care about the rights of people, really. They're using people. They're using kids because kids are vulnerable. And a lot of these illegals have come over, many of them, some of them hostile and some of them criminal, yes, but also a lot of them in a desperate situation, in a very vulnerable situation, where they're obviously not going to really be in a position if they're coming into an intake center, which is giving them a directive, like, you have to think in this communistic, socialistic way that aims to subvert America, that's the messaging that they're getting, then you're going to be bullied into that, whether you're wanting to do that or not. And that's the thing that's happening. So do you want to take the next section, replacement migration?
Yeah, I was showing a lot of that on the screen anyway, so I'll just summarize it.
All right.
In replacement migration, again, you're trying to replace the host society with not really a new one, but you're just trying to break down the host society. To do that, migrants they're framed as agents of development, right? Sustainable development doesn't mean what it seems like it means. It means to sustain their movement.
Their ideology.
Their ideology, particularly. And that would be the social part of that would be globalism, which would be the liberal international order, not the liberal international order, but the international rules-based order, which is not based in ordered liberty or natural law, unalienable rights given by God. It's framed in a system where authority comes from the highest, from man. It comes from institutions. When they say democracy, they mean democracy of the institutions. Democracy, the institutions have the rights, not the people. People are looked at as human capital to be socially engineered. National borders just become obstacles, and constitutional sovereignty is expendable in this movement. This is what the people in the streets are supporting. This is what they're crying for right now, knowingly or not. And so our video from 2 years ago, exactly, or just a little less than 2 years ago now, a little more than 2 years ago now, documents military-aged men, including large numbers of Chinese nationals potentially connected to the CCP, underscores the national security implications of this project. These flows do not merely strain resources, they alter political reality. The long-term objective is permanent demographic change, ensuring one-party dominance and the erosion of ordered liberty, to be replaced with rules-based order. And someone mentioned this already, human capital, where people are not even treated as human beings or families or moral agents, They're interchangeable demographic units, inputs to be moved, replaced, and redistributed in service of world socialism, global governance objectives.
Right. And that includes obviously the Red Green Alliance, where it's for hundreds of years, it's known that Marxists and Islamists get together and they are co-belligerents for a time because they share their hatred of Judeo-Christian civilization, some might say, you know. But what it comes down to more accurately is they share the hatred of the biblical worldview.
Yep, it is a managed population transfer. And that's what these poor kids are being convinced to fight for. They're being conscripted into a war that they don't know they're in. That's this part says that these things, these movements, like this NGO we just showed you, the National Development Center in Minnesota, it's particularly for
New American Development.
those who come from Africa, and in Minnesota particularly, it's about for Somalis. They are local execution nodes of global population management strategy, tasked with receiving, orienting, and politically shaping imported populations, and not toward assimilation and loyalty to the Constitution, but toward grievance, dependency, and ideological alignment with global socialism. All right. All of this is carefully veiled behind the language of compassion, equity, and moral progress. But what is marketed as humanitarian concern is, in reality, a coordinated effort towards civilizational erasure aimed squarely at displacing the God of the Bible. That's ultimately what it's about.
Right. So
mitigating, supplanting, replacing the creator of heaven and earth.
Are you able to
from
hear
public
me?
life and from the conscience of the West. That's the demoralization stage.
Hey, Brad.
And I think actually have a video to end this up with too, but I want this piece that you've put here at the end is quite relevant. I'll go ahead and paste this in here so we can have it. Okay. This is why we have been so adamant about telling you that Trump's withdrawal from these 66 multilateral organizations and treaties was so significant that it was okay. I'll do it. It was very important. It was, we often, we're often criticized for pushing a political narrative. I say that all the time, but that's what we hear a lot. We get comments a lot criticizing us. Don't you understand? It's all fake. The world's a stage. None of it's real. Okay, that's fine. But you can't live that out. You can't live as if nothing is real. You can't live your life as if your nation, founded in liberty, grounded in the moral law of God, isn't important. If you do, you're handing it over. You're giving it up. So this is why we say it was very important that Trump took that stand. When he took office a year ago, he started the process of withdrawing from the World Health Organization and UNESCO. And then last week, it became official. The United Nations is no longer a part of UNESCO, which controls education. No longer part of the World Health Organization. Now, there is still a problem because these people are embedded already in our systems and they believe in it and live it out. But still, you have to recognize that withdrawal as a good thing because it's trying to move us back toward constitutional principles, national sovereignty. It wasn't symbolic. It was a material disruption of the internationalist machinery that funds, coordinates, and legitimizes the operations we've shown you here tonight. Also, the National Security Strategy released by the White House in November signaled a decisive turn away from the corrupt multilateral governance structure, these illicit funding pipelines, particularly as Summer mentioned earlier, that was going on in Venezuela. It was an international hub for terrorism and narco trafficking that was funding our downfall. Also, a turn away from the ideological social engineering and returning the federal government's focus to the freedom, prosperity, and stability of American citizens, particularly the middle class, especially the productive middle class. That globalism has hollowed out for decades. And this is why opposition against Trump has intensified. This is one of the reasons why they are rising up against him so hard right now. When a system is exposed and disrupted, doesn't retreat quietly, it lashes out. And this left in the United States right now is committed. They are committed to living by lies. Now, ultimately, that will bite them and they will fall, but they will not go without a fight. And so for those who are skeptical, especially if you're a Christian, if you're a professing Christian, we wanted to share this. We wanted to show you this video that was done in conjunction with Hillsdale College. And I want you to listen to what President Trump says here. It's significant. We have to hear him first.
In the sweltering summer of 1776, 56 patriots gathered in a meeting hall in Philadelphia and signed their names to a document that would change the course of history forever. The Declaration of Independence, and I have it right there. What a beauty. Not only did they sever the political bonds with Great Britain, they announced a new era in human events, proclaiming that all of us are endowed by our Creator with rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In our war for independence and every generation since, thousands of American patriots have enlisted their lives in defense of that cause. From Trenton to Yorktown, from Gettysburg to Chambersburg, from the fields of France to the shores of the Philippines, and on the battlefields all over the world, every generation of Americans has drawn meaning and been inspired by the immortal deeds of the founding generation and the nation they gave us to build and to defend. In 2.5 centuries, that's 250 years, the spirit of 1776 has carried our flag to places and heights that our founding fathers could never have dreamed. Americans forged into the frontier and blazed across the Great Plains. We tamed the Wild West. We pushed the boundaries of scientific discovery. We enlightened the world with electricity and commerce. We defeated tyrants and vanquished dictators. And we planted the American flag on the moon. We owe it all to the patriots and heroes of 1776. This is the story of America. We're excited to retell one of the greatest tales in the history of mankind, working with Hillsdale College and some of our country's brightest leaders and foremost thinkers who have contributed to the Story of America video series, including Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Dr. Larry Arnn, Eric Metaxas, Brian Kilmeade, and many others. Join us in honoring this incredible history, and together we will give America the greatest birthday celebration our country has ever seen. God bless you, and God bless America. Our Creator.
Right there. Endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which means virtue, which means grounded in the moral law. That's the definition of happiness that the founders understood, virtue. Endowed by their Creator. That is not ambiguous. They knew what they meant by Creator.
That's right.
All right. So, is there anything you want to say to?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, this framework that we've been describing to you this evening, it explains why the Democratic Party leaders and, the neocons that support this as well, that support globalism and the international rules-based order, the people that are on board with that, of seeing the New World Order through, this framework that we've been explaining explains why the Democratic leaders are so reflexively, they're defending illegal migrants under the banner of moral superiority, because they've got to get you to believe that they're the ones that have the moral high ground in all of this. But it really cannot be stressed enough that this is manipulation, and this liberation that they promise, and this game that they're playing is just that. It's really a game, and the posture is not rooted in genuine concern for human dignity or the rule of law. It is strategic, and illegal migrants are protected not because they are victims, really, in the sense that they would like to have you believe, but because it's strategic, because they are assets to be protected. They've made an investment, they've brought these people in, and they are assets to be protected for overthrowing and subverting the US Constitution and the American way of life. And ultimately, as we all know, that is liberty. So they are a future voting bloc and a pool of destabilizing agents useful for political leverage and cultural transformation. So these so-called agents of development are essential to a broader project of managed disorder. They accelerate social fragmentation, strain institutions, strain our resources, bankrupt the nation, because how can we possibly take care of all of these people? We're not taking care of our own people that need this help. They are citizens of the United States. It's not moral. It's not moral what they are doing. And to erode the moral and legal foundations of the nation under the guise of doing something that trying to put off this fake sense, people that are involved in the movement, sure, they might think that it's something that it's not, but the people that are driving this operation, at the end of the day, it's about forming a global citizen that is divorced from God, and therefore a godless society, and it only ends in totalitarianism. So the objective is not coexistence, but the replacement of biblical morality with a secular, man-centered authority structure that ultimately answers to the globalized state.
That's a good point. That's a good place to leave it tonight. So our message to you is you must be involved.
You got to vote, guys. You got to vote. You've got to vote.
You might feel like that it's hopeless. You might feel like that voting is a scam, and it's, folks, if you want it to be hopeless and useless, then stay at home. That's the problem with conservatives. We don't show up to vote. If our candidate isn't the perfect embodiment of what we believe ought to be there, then we just stay home. And by doing that, we hand it over to this radical bunch who are not going to stop. They're not going to stop. Trump's enforcement of the law in these cities with ICE must continue. Because don't think for a second, if you pull that back, they're going to stop. This isn't ever going to stop unless we get involved. If you don't, you at least have to be involved at your local level. Know who your mayor is, know who your town manager is, know who they are, and know whether or not they're implementing globalist policies in your city, because I'll guarantee you most of them are. It's been going on for a long time. So that's the message we want to leave you with tonight.
Yeah, don't sit out the midterms. Make sure that you talk to people about how important this is, because I really want to say that, it's serious. It's just as serious as the last election. And
Get involved. Yes, because
yeah,
the federal elections, when you're electing the president, that's very important. But you know what's even more important? What's absolutely required is that we be involved in our hometowns, in our cities, and our regions. That we get involved in our elections there primarily, because listen, American sovereignty is ultimately defended at home by local autonomy. And if you don't do it, you will lose it. And that's the message for you tonight.
yeah. Compartmentalized Christianity is a Western heresy. So the Bible does not want you to be private with your faith. You are here to speak the truth and to be salt and light out in the world. And don't allow yourself to be bullied by getting accusations of, oh, well, you sound like a Christian nationalist. Okay, fine. We were told that we would be persecuted. Like that means you're doing something, So don't let them intimidate you with something like that. And we are here to make that vote for the most moral option that's available, and we owe it to the Lord Jesus Christ, because he placed us in this time and place for the moment that we're in now, and so we have a responsibility to warn the saints, and to just keep speaking the truth and keep doing the next right thing.
That's well said. I think we'll leave it right there. Thank you for joining us, my friends. We'll see you here again very soon.
As early as 1928, the communists declared that the racial differences among our people constituted the weakest and most vulnerable point in our social fabric. By constantly probing and straining at this one spot, they calculated that eventually the cloth could be torn apart and that Americans could be divided, weakened, and perhaps even set against each other in open combat. The average American, they say, soft and decadent. He'll become paralyzed with fear and panic. He'll run away and hide and do nothing to interfere as they strike at the community's power centers. Any all-out revolution must create a state of crisis wherein almost all of the male population would be forced to remain in their homes because of its affluence. It has waxed soft. The motive force behind its life drive is its endless pursuit of prestige, conspicuous consumption, and sensual pleasure. After the stage is properly set, America could be brought to her knees in 90 days. Ladies and gentlemen, the organization behind these preparations has almost unlimited financial resources. Our enemies are deadly serious about their task, and it's nothing short of national suicide for us to continue to ignore their plans and their progress. The strategy calls for the quiet conversion of our government. They have one and only one solution for all problems. More government, and then more and more until it's total government. In 1943, the following directive was issued from party headquarters. It read, "When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist. Label them as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. the association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind.
Because I don't hate anybody. And I want to see every single solitary person on this earth. I want to see their souls saved. Every single solitary person. And each and every one of us that calls ourselves a Christian should pray vehemently for their souls, that we would see them in heaven and forget about all this when we get up there.